Hi guys, I'm here today to tell you about the changes that I made in my dividend growth portfolio for August 2022. I made some changes to the portfolio that amount to a rearrangement of almost 10% of the money in the portfolio. I made my normal mid-month dividend reinvestment, and at the end of the video I will sum up the effect of everything and, as I always do, show you the whole portfolio. So with that, let's move to the slides. Okay guys, as I said, this is a review, my normal mid-month review of my dividend growth portfolio. And in this video with these slides, I will be covering changes I made to the portfolio, my dividend reinvestment for the month of August, and finish with a portfolio review. The first half of August was very active for me. In fact, I made a small overhaul of my portfolio. As shown here, I sold out of one stock and trimmed three others. I added to three positions. I made my monthly dividend reinvestment, and after all that was done, I significantly improved the portfolio's dividend performance. I kicked things off this month by conducting a detailed review of the portfolio. I rated every stock in the portfolio on its yield, its quality, its dividend performance, and its valuation. My goals in doing this were to turn some capital gains into more income without sacrificing quality. The stock that I sold out of was a small position, less than 3% of the portfolio, in General Dynamics. I'd made some money in General Dynamics. It was somewhat overvalued, and it had a small yield at about 2.3%. In addition to selling that stock, I trimmed three large positions that had significant capital gains that I wanted to cash in some of. The three stocks I trimmed were Microsoft, McDonald's, and PepsiCo. Those are all large positions in the portfolio. They were all overvalued by my reckoning, between 13 and 15% for each of them, and they are all low yielders that would not qualify for purchase now. I bought them when they had higher yields years ago, but now, with Microsoft's yield under 1% and the highest of them yielding 2.6%, none would qualify, even though they're high-quality companies, for purchase at the current time, because I have a minimum purchase rule for this portfolio of at least 2.8% or so yield. So here's what I did. This line shows the sale of General Dynamics. I sold it out. I made $3,916. I shouldn't say I collected for that sale $3,916 in cash. Similarly with Microsoft, these three are the stocks I trimmed. Microsoft, I sold 15 shares, picked up $2,800 in cash. McDonald's, I sold 15 shares and picked up $3,900 in cash. And PepsiCo, I sold 27 shares, picked up $4,700 in cash. The amount of cash that came into the portfolio from these three sales was over $15,000. But notice over here in the last column that by selling those out, selling General Dynamics and trimming the other three, I lost $318 from my annual dividend run rate. By relinquishing shares, of course, you also relinquish the dividends that are paid on those shares, and that's what I did here. Keep that number in mind, minus $318, because we'll encounter it later. Here are the next three slides, including this one, are the stocks that I chose to buy. All of them are existing positions in the portfolio, so I'm adding to all of them. The first one is BlackRock Asset Management Company, and you can see that on its quality snapshot, it's just a sea of green. BlackRock is one of the highest quality scoring companies that I own. It scores 23 out of 25 points on its quality snapshot. On its dividend snapshot, it's also a sea of green. The only things that aren't green are it's only been increasing its dividend for 12 years, and its yield is in what I call the okay range, meaning from my base that I would buy anything at all of 2.8 or 2.9% on up to 4%. Anything in that range gets a yellow okay for me. The rest of it, all green, and it scores an A on its dividend snapshot. The second stock that I decided to buy is to add to my position in Dividend Realty Trust. That doesn't score as high on its quality snapshot, but it does get an investment grade rating. Anything 15 points or above I consider to be investment investment grade. And we notice that it has one standout statistic, namely a very safe 94 out of 100 score on its dividend safety grade. Its dividend snapshot is very steady. I use again the dividend safety grade. Everything else is fine. Got a decent streak of increasing its dividends. It has a yield that almost pushes into the next category at 3.8%. It runs about 5 to 6% per year in dividend increases, and overall I give it a B grade for its dividend snapshot. Stock I decided to add to take advantage of its high yield for 5.2% is Philip Morris. And again, you can see that it scores well into the 15 to 18 range on its quality snapshot, well into the investable category as I look at things. And it's got a very good dividend snapshot, highlighted by 52 consecutive years of increasing its dividend and its 5.2% yield. With that high yield comes a somewhat slower growth rate, but those rates are okay for a high yielder. It's been steadily in that range and it gets a B grade. So here's what I did with the money that I made, or cash that I brought in from making the sell and trims that I discussed earlier. I added 7 shares of BlackRock. It cost me $4,800, but added to my annual dividend run rate $137. I bought 40 shares of Digital Realty Trust. That cost me $5,100, almost $5,200, but it adds $195 to my annual dividend run rate. And for Philip Morris, I bought, 52 shares, cost me $5,100. Adds $260 to my annual dividend run rate. When I was done, I had spent all but $247 of the money I had collected for trimming and selling the stocks that I talked about earlier, and my net dividends actually gained by $274. In other words, the sum of these three is $274 more than the amount I had relinquished by selling the shares that I sold. Here's the portfolio before and after those sales. These little snapshots of the portfolio come from Simply Safe Dividends, where I have loaded the portfolio. And I want to draw your attention to 3 things shown by these vertical blue arrows. The first is the annual income. The annual income jumped up by that $247 that I gained by making the trades that I made. The inherent dividend growth rate of the portfolio stays about the same. It was at 7% a year over the preceding 5 years before I made the trades, and it's still at 6.8% per year after I made the trades. And the third thing is the diversification of the portfolio. This is probably hard to read, but before I made the trade, the information technology sector was the second largest sector in the portfolio. After the trades, that got leapfrogged by healthcare. And you can see that these pie slices are more equal in size than they were before, indicating that I've balanced out the portfolio to some extent. Here's the way I see the goals that I accomplished by making the trades that I made. First, I increased the size and the influence of 3 quality stocks that have overall better dividend characteristics, especially yields, than the ones that I sold. Second, my new shares brought each position up to more than 4% of the portfolio, so none of them are anymore in the small, what I would call small position size portion of the portfolio. And third, as I just mentioned in the comparison, I balanced the portfolio more overall. In doing that, I took advantage of some money that had been made in capital gains in the stocks that I sold, and I basically converted that into income going forward for the portfolio. Let's move on to my dividend reinvestment part of this video. Last October, and this is a screenshot from a video I made last October, I ranked dividend growth ETFs, and one stood out from the others as far as I'm concerned. Shown at the bottom of the screen, its ticker symbol is SCHD, which stands for Schwab's U.S. Dividend Equity ETF. I don't wish to get into all the details here about how I ranked and scored dividend growth ETFs, but if you want to see the rankings, please go back and look at that video. You'll find it in my timeline. And it was last October, which you can see it was near Halloween when I did that. Although SCHD is not a stock, and I can't make a dividend snapshot for it the way I do for stocks, I can come close to it because while it doesn't have a Simply Safe Dividends safety rating, it has all the other statistics that I use in my dividend snapshots anyway. And we can see that it makes for a nice story. SCHD is one of only two dividend ETFs that I know of with a double-digit years dividend increase streak. It has a nice yield of 3.2%. It's been very fast growing in its yield. From 2020 to 2021, it grew its yield by 11%. Its 5-year dividend growth rate on an annual basis is 12% per year, which is very fast. And its 10-year dividend growth trend has been to increase its dividend fast to very fast. Overall, that gives it a score, if I drop out the 10 points that I can't award for the missing score here, that brings the total possible points to 25, and SCHD would score 19 out of 25, which would be a B on the way I score made versus points possible. This slide illustrates SCHD's valuation. I've done valuation exercises for SCHD various times, and I've always concluded that when SCHD is yielding in the 2.8 to 2.9% range, it is fairly fairly valued rather, and that's what this green yellow band shows. It's drawn right across as best I could by hand at 2.9% yield, and you can see the yield that on SCHD was much higher than that when I made my purchase, shown by this red arrow. I was able to get SCHD at about a 3.2% yield. So, as my dividend reinvestment for August of 2022, I invested in 6 shares of SCHD, bringing my total share count up to 37. It cost me $455, and it added to my dividend run rate about another $15 on top of what I added from all the trades that I showed you earlier. Here's the comparison before that reinvestment and after the reinvestment, and here's the $15 coming into the annual dividend run rate. And I also want to note that because of SCHD's high rate of dividend growth, I actually improved the rate of dividend growth of the whole portfolio from 6.8% after I made the trades to 6.9%, which is practically the 77.0% that it was at before I did all of these things. I end up with a portfolio now yielding 3.4%, and my income safety is very high. It stayed, the unrated part is SCHD itself, but 92% of the portfolio has safe dividend grade shown by the dark green part of this circular, and 4% is borderline safe. I forget which stock that is in the portfolio. But overall, I'm very satisfied with the overall dividend safety of my dividend growth portfolio. Let's move along now to the portfolio review portion of the video. This is as of mid-August 2022, and the market value of my portfolio is now $176, almost $177. That's up nearly 7% from roughly a year ago. This year I've dropped the number of positions in the portfolio from 31 to 29. You saw one of those this month by selling out of General Dynamics, and earlier in the year I sold out of a different stock. The current yield is 3.4%. That's up significantly from last year, and that's partly, well, it's all based on the improvement in the dividend characteristics that I've been making throughout the year. My annual dividend run rate is now $5,971 a year. That's 19% more than it was a little over a year ago. The yield on cost is 12.8% now, which is up more than 2% from what it was about a year ago. And I want to remind you, as I do every time, and I'll keep doing it to remind you, yield on cost in a dividend growth portfolio means that I collect that much money per year from the portfolio as a percentage, shown as a percentage of how much the portfolio originally cost. So I divide the dividend run rate, which is $5,971, by the original value of the portfolio, which was $46,783, and that's how I get the 12.8% yield on cost. That kind of performance is why I started this portfolio in 2008, and frankly, it continues to amaze me how you can invest in stocks to generate rising dividend streams. Speaking of which, you've all seen this slide before. It shows on the right, the dividends I've actually received from the portfolio through the end of 2021. I'll update it again at the end of this year. But from its first full year in 2009 to the end of 2021, I had a 10.5% compound annual growth rate of the dividends. You can see them going up every year. And over on the left are the 3 reasons why number goes up the way it goes up. Number 1, which I'm not discussing in this video, stocks increase their dividends. I'll discuss that next month. The 2 other things we saw in this video, reinvestment of dividends and adjustments to the portfolio. Taken together, they resulted in an increase in my annual dividend run rate of $289 a year. That's more than a 5% increase by itself on the run rate at the beginning of the year, and that's why my yield on cost zoomed up to 12.8% after the transactions from 12.1% at the beginning of August. And now we move on to the final slide in this video, which shows you my entire portfolio. You can pause the video here if you want to study the details of it. You will see that the numbers along the bottom match the ones I've already told you, the total value of the portfolio, the 3.4% yield of the portfolio, and the $5,971 annual dividend run rate. I will also say, while you look at the details of the portfolio, I'll give you these facts about it. I began it in 2008 to demonstrate dividend growth investing. Its initial value was just under $47,000. It's now worth more than $176,000, which is a growth of about 278% since inception. That growth has been achieved with no new money ever added to the portfolio from the outside by me. All growth has come from within the portfolio via market price increases, dividend reinvestments, and occasional trims and swaps. And those last 2 categories were what we discussed in this video. I started with 10 positions. I now have 29. The annual income, as we saw on the earlier slide, goes up at about 10% per year, and the yield on cost has reached 12.8%. And that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you have questions or comments, please use the comment stream that appears underneath the video on YouTube, and I will be active there. I will respond to questions, and I will also eliminate spam as soon as I see it. Thanks a lot for watching. Goodbye, everybody.